Hey, everybody. He's hard to label and even harder to put in a box. So you know what we did? We stopped trying. That's right. Welcome to the Brian Kennedy Show.
All right. I'm so excited. I can't even believe this is really happening. I've got an old dear friend and a dear old friend, I guess I should say, Billy Huard. Gosh, I can't believe that we're getting to do this. We were just chatting here a little bit before we hit the record button about my age, and I'm shocked that I've made it this far. But I'm glad you're still a part of my life. I mean, you know, it's really a blessing that we have remained friends from. Do you remember the year we met? Do you have any idea when that was?
I want to say 89 or 90, 1990.
Okay, so how we met. So a little bit, just a quick background from me. My father, in the music business in Nashville, back when I was probably 4, 5, 6 years old, used to take us to the Nashville Dixie Flyer hockey games at the Municipal Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee. So I became a hockey fan maybe, you know, when I was fresh out of diapers pretty much. And that was pretty rare for Nashville, Tennessee. So fast forward to after I've played college ball, I come back to Nashville, and they have a new ECHL hockey team, the Nashville Knights, where I'm introduced to what they would introduce Billy as the bad boy of hockey, I think is what they said when you were getting ready to take the ice. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
But it was some great times, and had my brothers were there with me, and my dad went to the games. We were all watching, and the thing about Billy that was apparent right away is how good of a hockey player you were in a league that wasn't full of really good hockey players. And then the obvious thing that's going to come out in this podcast is I learned before I ever met you not to make you mad.
That's so funny. Yeah.
There's kind of two Billies. I don't know if you have a name for the other one, but real quick, I'm going to brag on you a little bit, Billy. I'm going to let you talk. I promise. This is about you, not. But 1989 to 90 in the ECHL, 24 goals, 27 assists, 51 points, 212 penalty minutes. But this is the thing that got me when I learned this. 1.5 points a game, which is really good, but averaging more than 6 minutes of penalties per game while you did that. That tells me you're a good teammate. You're a great guy to have on your team, and you contributed to the team and everything. So you're remembered for your toughness, but you could play. And then you went on to the NHL, right? And I have some stats here: 223 games, 16 goals, 18 assists, 34 points, penalty minutes 594, 5 playoff games. And that was 92 through 2000, is that about right?
Yep. I retired in
who
2000.
Who were all the NHL teams you played for?
I started out in Boston, and then Ottawa, Edmonton, Dallas, a little bit with LA towards the end. And then I played in the American League. I played over 600 pro hockey games, 200 and whatever 30 in the NHL. So as a boy growing up in Canada, you know, your dream is to play in the NHL. And I fulfilled it. It was pretty amazing. I grew up with 3 older sisters, and I was the young one. Dad finally got his son. And I mean, it was quite a journey. But yeah, it was an incredible journey, and I got to live out my dream. So I played at every level. When I met you, that East Coast Hockey League, it was the Eastern League, only had 5 teams in that league at that point. Now there's 30 plus teams, and it's like double A. It was like below single A when I got there. And one owner owned 4 of those teams. The only team he didn't own was ours, and we won the championship that year. But it's pretty crazy. But yeah, I remember I played in Carolina the first year, and then when I met you, I was in Nashville, and Ron Fuller and Bob Polk, who I'm still in touch with these days, they're wrestlers. They were wrestlers. You know, they come from that whole world of wrestling. And Ron Fuller was like 6'8", big. I forget what his wrestling name was, but anyways, it was all about marketing. And like you said, we sold out the first 5 games. We had to delay the start of the game because they were sold out. And Tennessee and Nashville's got a great history with hockey, way back before even I played there. So it's pretty amazing. It's you know, the Predators obviously are, you know, the NHL, but prior to that, there's a lot of good hockey played in Nashville.
We actually found out that one of your friends, Flo Plot.
Oh yeah.
I watched him play for the Dixie Flyers, and then how'd you know Flo?
So Flo, the Pilots, French Canadian. My father's French Canadian. So when they moved from Quebec to Ontario, the two families moved together. My grandfather worked with his grandfather on the railroad, and then they were hockey players. And then Flo's brother, Pierre Pilot's a Hall of Famer. He played for the Chicago Blackhawks for years, and my dad was friends with Flo as well. So that's kind of how that happened. And I remember hearing about Pierre Pilot as a young kid. My dad always talking about him because it was like one of his best friends. And then who'd ever thought I'd be hanging out with Flo in Nashville and his sons and stuff like that. So funny how the world goes. But yeah, and it was nice because I had just finished junior and I hadn't had any pro hockey really other than Carolina, and to see Flo and you know, he helped me kind of understand Nashville, where to live, all those things, essentially like an uncle to me. So it was pretty cool.
That's very cool. So let's talk a little bit more about your beginning in hockey. And so I'm always curious if the athlete that played the sport, when they fell in love with it, if they fell in love with it, and at what point in time did you fall in love with it, and did that remain in your career?
That's a great question. Because I know two sides of that. I know guys, players that are, you know, parents were vicariously living through their dream that they wanted, but I wasn't that kid for sure. When I was 4 years old, I started skating. My mom actually got me on the ice, and I loved the sport. I loved it ever since I was 4 or 5 years old, all the way up. Obviously, it's been a journey. You know, life's not a straight line, that's for sure. But I loved hockey. I love the sport. You know, it's just everything about it, and I was good at it. You know, and I excelled at it. I had to, in order for me to make it. You know, I had to grow spurts. I had all kinds of things to deal with throughout my journey. But it was each leg of it, you have ups and downs, but when you finally get to the point where you make it, it's pretty amazing. When you've been, you know, but the journey is hard. You know, I don't know too many players that just make it to the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NHL without the ups and downs. You know, you always have your first rounders and stuff, but for me, I was never drafted, so I took the long road, but it was definitely worth it to live out my dream. And you know, and the cool thing about it, Brian, was my dad, he always just wanted the best for me, you know. So we were able to live it together, you know. And then my journey, of course, when I got to a certain age, at a certain level in the NHL, you get to a certain point where it's like any other sport, but in hockey, you have the best of the best in the world in the NHL. So you really have to identify what you're good at and what you're not good at, because there's goal scorers, there's offensive hockey players, there's defensive hockey players, there's defensemen, there's forwards, there's goalies. And you have to identify something that you're really good at and be the best. And for me, that was my physicality. I was a big, strong, tough winger. I didn't grow up. I grew up in, you know, just a great home with 3 older sisters. So I didn't have like a real meanness to me. But when you get to the NHL, at that point, the game certainly changed. But there's definitely an element of intimidation at that level that there has to be a presence, and I was myself, and a lot of players like me were filling that role and that need, which was needed at that point in the NHL. So I went through some tough times having to kind of be somebody I really wasn't in order to kind of live out my dream. But as I sit here now at 59 in the journey I've been on, I'm so blessed, and everything and all the lessons and everything I went through was so worth it. But at the time when you're in the fire, you don't really realize that. And the other thing is I wasn't a man of faith back then either. So having faith in my life now for the last 25 years, it's changed my life considerably. So, and how I look back on my journey, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, it's been incredible. My career, I owe everything. Obviously, I have my faith, but hockey's been a part of my entire life, my entire journey. It didn't end in 2000 when I retired. Even to this day, it's still part of my life. My son's now on Florida's farm team, in the American Hockey League. It's just, and now all my friends are GMs or coaches, and it's just full circle. It's pretty incredible.
Well, so all of this is a blessing for us to hear. But I want to ask you about, there was a point in my life when I was a young man playing football. I was a running back, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade. In other words, I was the guy that scored all the time. Give me the ball, I'm going to score. Give me the ball, I'm going to score. Got into the seventh grade where I didn't know the coach. None of the players knew me. It was a new school, all that sort of thing. And all of a sudden, after we do stretching and all those sorts of things, this new coach that I didn't know and he didn't know me said, linemen over here and backs over here. Well, I went over there where the backs were because, give me the ball, I'm going to score. And he stopped me. He goes, no. He says, you're too big. You go over here with the lineman. Billy, I call it identity theft.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. The point in my career where somebody that didn't know me, totally robbed me of who I was. I mean, to that point in my life, I was the guy that ran the ball. Mm-hmm. And this guy hasn't even seen me do anything that's all of a sudden saying, no, you're not. You're going to be this person over here. I think you can identify with that. So at what point that you're playing hockey, and you started at what age? What age did you start?
4 years old.
Okay. So 4 years old, you're playing hockey.
Well, 4 years old, we started we're not really hockey, but 5 and 6 is when we started really just might hockey, and then right up through 7, 8, 9, 10, and all the way up.
So how rough was hockey up until the point where, because I saw you play, you're a great hockey player. You didn't need to fight to play hockey, right?
Well,
at what point did that start to become apparent to you?
So I junior, when I was right around 16, 17, I started to realize, okay. And when I played junior in Peterborough, I knew it because I had to answer the bell then, and that was the game then. And I got
okay. So slow down there for a second. What specifically made you think what you just said? I had to answer the bell.
Just the role. If I wanted to make the Peterborough Petes, there had to be an intimidation factor to my game. I had to be the guy to go out and stir things up, to protect the offensive forwards. I realized there was a big gap between me and the elite players. And in order for me to continue with my career, I had to be that. I had to identify the role where I could do that. And it certainly wasn't the first two lines in hockey. It was the fourth line or the third line, and my goal was always, okay, become the fourth line and then hopefully get yourself up to the third line. You won't have to fight as much. But it was in junior for most of us, especially back in the day, in the 80s, our third and fourth lines were lots of tough guys. And that's what you had to become. You had to do that. And
so did you make that decision on your own?
Yeah, oh yeah, I had to. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Or I could have went home and worked for Huard Heating and Air Conditioning. You know, that was really the option for me. And I had worked summers doing that, and I was like, I'm not doing that. My dream is to play hockey, and we've worked so hard. Me and Dad wrote letters to all these teams. I only had 2 letter returns, so I took advantage of it. You know, and that's the role I filled myself and Ty Domi, and there's all kinds of NHL guys, you know. But unfortunately, that's at that time that in that era that was how it wasn't like it is now, where you could be a big power forward and fight for with a purpose, you know. Back then it was, and then it got worse over the years because then it got to, a lot of guys couldn't even play the game. They were just signed as fighters.
Right. Right.
Can
you kind of explain that to people that are listening to this that maybe aren't that familiar with hockey, like the role that you came to the conclusion that you needed to play to make it?
Yeah, I mean, in that era, you had to, there was an intimidation factor, and you had your third and fourth line, which were players that were big and physical that would go in and change the momentum of a game with a big hit or a fight. And that's just how it was in junior and in the NHL. Back in the day, you had the Broad Street Bullies in Philadelphia and that back in the 70s. And you had to, and that was all part of it. That was part of the strategy. So that when you went on the road, if you're, when you're playing on the road, it's a tough game. I mean, you're playing in front of, whatever it is in junior, 6,000-7,000 fans in some little town in Ontario or Alberta, and they have a tough team. Well, you better have a tough team too, or your forwards aren't, they're just going to run right over you. So you kind of had to equal it out with each team had a few tough guys, and they knew what their role was. And we played regular shift. It's just that was our role. And that's the way the game was back then. So, and that's how teams drafted. That was the strategy of the game, of the teams. Wayne Gretzky, the greatest player in the world, always had 3 or 4 super heavyweight tough guys around him. And rightfully so. Marty McSorley's a good friend of mine, and he rode shotgun with Wayne everywhere he went. He took him with him.
So for the listener that doesn't know much about hockey, what you're saying is the first 2 lines of hockey basically are maybe scorers or guys that are offensive guys, and then there's a couple of lines behind that are protectors for those guys, right?
So your first 2 lines would be primarily your offensive lines, put the puck in the net, goal scorers. Your third line would be your defensive forwards. That would be the line that you, if you have home ice, that would be you always get last change. That would be the line that you put out against their best forwards. So your third line's always your defensive forward. So and a lot of those, kind of like what you did in football, a lot of those guys were goal scorers in junior. And the same thing, they said, hey, we know you can score, but in the NHL or in the American League or in junior, you're now going to be defending against the best goal scorers. So there was a lot of swallowing of pride as well, even at that level. And then you got to my level where then there was the fourth line, which were your energy guys, your guys that would go out and bang guys and make sure that your goal scorers didn't get run over, by the other fourth line. So if you're down, and I wrote about it in my book, it's like if you go on the road, especially in the NHL, and you're down 3 goals in the first period, you have a job to do, and that's to get out there and change the momentum of the game, So, and then when you go up 3 goals, their guy's coming. So really, in the NHL, as a tough guy, believe it or not, you kind of wanted the games to stay equal because you didn't want to have to deal with that. And that's just me. There are some guys that loved it and thrived. This is just my opinion, but and that was just.
So what was that like for you to first understand that was your role? Because I know Billy. Like if you were somebody I didn't know, I really might assume that you're just a hard person. But ever since I've met you, you got one of the biggest hearts of anybody I've ever met. You're a loving guy. You're a family guy. You care about everybody. I've seen you diffuse many situations that could have gone the other way. So what was that like for you to have the heart that you have and go, okay, now I've got to change this personality and go do what you did on the fourth line?
It was hard for me because my dad had got me. My dad was my rock, and my dad literally got me through everything I could have possibly got through. But my dad didn't play hockey. So when we got to a certain point in my career where fighting became part of it, and this was in the American Hockey League more than anywhere, and he couldn't understand it. And I'm like, Dad, you don't understand it. And he was like, no, you just got to go out and play the game. And I'm like, no, I don't. That's not enough. That's not going to get me to the NHL. So it was hard for me because I didn't know how to deal with it. You know, it was a lot of pressure, man. You know, when you have soldiers, you know, when they talk about PTSD and things like that for the military, most of those soldiers never seen action. It was the anxiety that really does the damage. And I felt was the same in hockey. It wasn't the fight, it was the anticipation of the fight. And that's what really chewed me up. And that was hard on me. And I had a tough time for a long time dealing with that because you're never fighting your fight. You're having to build up your anger, and you're on your whatever, you're on ephedrine and your coffees, and you're building yourself up for that time. Your Vaseline's on, your helmet's ready, you're ready. I mean, you're a hockey player getting ready to, essentially UFC, getting ready to go to war, but it's your job, you know, you signed up for it. So, you know, you could easily quit the sport too. So nobody twisted my arm and said, you have to do it. It's, if you want to play at that time, you do it. And it was hard on me. It was hard on me physically, emotionally. It was hard on me with my life off the ice. Finding purpose in it was the hardest thing. I didn't realize, I'm like, what purpose does this fill? It's like my hands are broken, they're in ice bags, and the next night we're on the road, we're playing the same team, and it was one after the next. And it's just kind of what happened to me, Brian, was to the point towards the end of my career in the NHL, after playing all those years in the American League and then the NHL, my heart was hard. And I mean super hard, meaning if you wanted to fight me, you were going to pay a price. The fear kind of went away, and it was just hard. And that's when I became somebody the person you're talking to today isn't the same person, you know what I mean? And like you said, yeah, you have known me, but through those years, those were dark years for me. And I'm not blaming the sport at all. It's just I had to become somebody I wasn't prepared to come in order to do it, you know. And looking back now, had I had faith and did the walk I've done after hockey, I would have been a tougher guy. I would have realized there was a greater purpose in my life. I would have realized, okay, there's a reason God, you know, put me in this role. And I would have taken a whole different approach to it. And it would have been more of, this is a blessing. I'm very thankful. Okay, it's a sport. It's part of the sport. That's how I look back on it now. That's why, you know, at one point I was just so bitter, couldn't watch the sport. And then I had things in my life happen that changed my life and softened me and helped me. And as you get older, you know, and you know that we were talking about, as you get older, you look back and it's like that. It's like a blink, your life. But it was hard on me, and it was hard on a lot of guys. And there's a lot of things that happen with a lot of these fighters, unfortunately, that probably didn't find faith or a higher power in that matter. And I think they you know, and the other thing that affected a lot of players after me was a lot of them would, you know, we would, for me, I had a vice, it was alcohol, you know, and NHL, we would just go and drink and, you know, drink the Coors Light. But after me, I never was a part of the pain pills and all that other stuff, thank God. But like I said, I don't ever want to taint the sport because I'm so blessed, and hockey was so great for me. It's just my journey and what I went through to become the person. And sometimes you have to go through those things to realize, hey man, this is life. There's going to be there's going to be stuff thrown at you in life that you have to deal with. And for me now, it's, I have 3 kids, and it's the lessons that I went through, and my son's a hockey player, and he can throw them, but he knows, he has faith and things like that in his life. Plus he's a heck of a he's a lot better hockey player than I ever was. But yeah, man.
Let's do this. It's gonna be this part of the show. It's gonna be fun. Where I call it, and then we're gonna call this "Nobody's Just One Thing." There's always more to a person than the title, the uniform, the stage, or the resume. This is where we get past what everybody already knows and find out who else is sitting in that chair, because nobody's just one thing. All right, Billy. Before we go further, every guest that I have, I'm going to hear me say this. I've spent a lot of my life around, as you know, athletes, musicians, entertainers, and I've learned something. Nobody is just one thing. You were just talking about it. So who is Billy Huard that hockey fans have never really known? Like, we've talked about your role. We've talked about hockey, which, I'm really big on what I call life outside the spotlight, or I call it life inside the spotlight. There's certain things, entertainers on stage, athletes on the field, on the court, on the ice, that's a whole nother world. But nobody talks about what nobody knows when you're off the ice. Mm-hmm. What are something people don't know about Billy Huard off the ice?
I'm a family man, strong family man. I got 3 kids. The greatest times of my life are when I'm on the golf course with my 2 boys. I love overlanding and things like that, getting off the grid with my camper. I'm an entrepreneur. I've started one company and we sold it, and here I am again doing that. I'm goofy and quirky, and my kids make fun of me every day. My kids golf with me. They said we should start a reality show with you, Dad, on the golf course.
Why do they say that?
Just because I said I'm sponsored by Kirkland. We get our golf balls at Costco, and I wear the Kirkland glove. I'm like, they're just like that. That's because you just use more Kirkland golf balls than anybody we've ever met. Things like that. Or I'll put one off
use and lose.
Yeah. But I mean, that's really who I am. I love my family. More than anything, that I would say that I have a tremendous wife and my kids. I'm very blessed. I really am. I enjoy friends. I have a lot of friends, but I mean, I have a lot of, I don't have a lot of real close friends, but I have a lot of friends, I find the older I get, the more time I just spend with my kids and things like that. I still do a lot of charity stuff with the Dallas Stars and things like that. But really, I'm a dreamer still, though. I still, ever since I was a kid, I still want my ranch in Montana. And there's certain things I still aspire. There's certain things I just wake up one day and think, man, how cool would that be? And we kind of all get caught in that, I guess. But, trying to not be too complacent, but also be happy in the moment. So that's kind of who I am. I mean, I'm a very blessed man. I can tell you that much.
Love that. So what do people get wrong about you? Like, if they've never met you, what do you think they hear about you? Maybe what do they get wrong?
I think when I do a lot of charity hockey events, people look me up on YouTube. And there's all kinds of fights and things on YouTube. And I think when they meet me, they say what they always do about hockey players. Man, those tough guys are good guys. I think that I don't think anybody underestimates me in terms of my passion and things like that, like in business. One thing when I keep saying hockey's taught me everything, it really has, because there hasn't been in the real world as it relates to business. I take everything I've learned from hockey and I implement that in my companies, and like I'm doing with this one as well. Team effort, or team and but more than anything, I would say that I think a lot of people are intimidated when they meet me because I literally rip their hand off with my handshake most times, or I feel their wrist click a little bit when
I've been on
but
that. I've been on that end. I'll say this about you, Billy. Your hands. I don't. There's no way to describe it, but when you grabbed a guy, there was no way he was going to get loose. I mean, that's no matter where you grab him. But I think your personality is the same. I think your personality is the first time I met you, your personality grabbed my attention, because there was a lot more to you. What we've been talking about, there's a lot more to you than just some guy with a strong hand and could knock you out or whatever you want to call it. But that's the first thing I think that grabbed me really quick. So I didn't get a chance to get you wrong. I met you pretty quick and got to know that about you. But I want to ask you this question, because everybody expects you to be tough. But where did you go to be human? You were the protector. Who protected you?
Man, that really didn't happen till later in my life. It really, and then I was reading a book on Billy Graham in my office in Las Vegas when I was living in Henderson, when I was living there, and it all kind of went full circle, and I realized my purpose. It was one of those aha moments, and not everybody gets them. And that's really when I started to become human. I started to, in my walk, forgive myself for who I had become. And it allowed me the opportunity to, and once I was able to forgive myself for who I had become, because I became a different person during those years when like I said, my heart had hardened, which meant it just didn't harden on the ice, it hardened off the ice as well. So I wasn't a real fun guy to be around for a long time. And once I found faith and had a relationship with Jesus in my world, that changed my life considerably. And it didn't happen overnight, man. I still, it's still like the rest of us. It's a journey, right? And I'm still on that journey and that walk. But man, the clarity I have, and I'll tell you another one was sobriety for me as well. Sobriety for a long, for almost 7 years now has cleared my head so much. It's unbelievable. And only through faith could that have happened. And my family, I was at my son's wedding on Saturday. My oldest, Reese, you've met Reese many, many moons ago.
Yeah.
He got married on Saturday. And I was just sitting there in a beautiful ceremony on the golf course, and all these people, and my wonderful new daughter-in-law. And I'm just looking at the mountains in the background here in Southern California. And nobody knows, my wife does, but really the depth of it, I'm just sitting there going, only God can do this, because if I'm not sober, this is not happening. This wedding's not happening. And I know this sometimes is too much for folks that aren't believers, but it's undeniable what God did in my life. And that's how it is, Brian. That's what makes me human now. It's like, and you miss it. And all these things the last 20 plus years that I don't miss anymore. Like I see things and I see signs and oh my gosh. And the faith in the business world, and I lean into faith because it's exciting to me. And there hasn't been a meeting that I haven't gone into in business when I'm just a hockey player. And I'm like, God, I don't know. I'm with a bunch of engineers here. They know way more than I'll ever know. And I've never left the meeting not going, thank you, God, for what you just did. And it's just, so I think I would have to say, honestly, when I became a believer is when I first started to become real human. Up to that point, it was when I was like 12 or 13 years old. I was a kid,
Yeah. That's awesome. Because when I asked you, when did you become human? You're basically saying when you accepted Christ into your life. That's when you realized. And then I said, who's your protector? I think that's the same answer, right?
It is. Yep.
I mean, Jesus, you can't have him. He walks with us every day. It's funny because I think sometimes we'll get into a situation and go, and we'll call on Jesus, like, Jesus, can you be with me while I'm walking through this? And I think he just goes, man, I'm never away from you. What do you mean, can I be with you? I'm here. I've been here. I'm here before. I'll be here after. I'm here during. And when we come to realize that, the peace that it gives us in our life of knowing that we do have a protector.
And what's crazy is there were signs, and like I look at our relationship. You've always been a mentor to me, especially in faith, and I've my book and other times I've reached out to you. That's so important to have along the journey, because there's not a lot of them out there, especially in my world on the hockey side. We never had the Bibles, like the football players and the baseball players. And we never had those. We had hockey ministries, but it wasn't huge. You were almost frowned upon, Nowadays it's changed. There's ministries at every level. So when I met you and have a stud athlete, songwriter, talk about God like it's normal instead of, honestly, it means, and that's how I do it with others as well. It's like, look, I'm an NHL. I was a tough guy, but here's how my life is now. Here's who I was, and here's who I am. And I want to thank you for that, because the ability to pick up a phone and say, hey man, I'm going through this, or I'm going through that, and just ease, like how your demeanor is and what God would want, or what God sees in you is really powerful. So I don't want to by no means say, oh, just God came into my life and it was just me and God. It wasn't. Yeah. There were people, like, not a ton of them, but there were guys like you that I looked up to, and that changed my life as well. That were a huge part of it, So
funny, because I look up to you. That's so funny. I love that. Yeah. I look up to you. I've always looked up to you.
Iron sharpens iron, right? It's just,
well, you just got such a big heart, man. I've always seen it, Just a big heart. Tell us about the book. Let's hear about your book. Tell everybody about your book.
I wrote a book. So when we sold our last company, and I always wanted to do something. I wanted my story out there, but in a positive way. I didn't want it to be a negative. So it's a purpose worth fighting for. And it's about my journey and how I made it, how I had to overcome all of the odds. And then it goes through the dark times as well, and what I went through, having to be somebody I wasn't, but then it gives the light at the end of the tunnel, and how I kind of, and all my, in each lesson, in each chapter, I have a lesson, and I challenge the readers, like, hey, if you're here, you're there, and and whether if you're a believer or not, even you don't have to be a believer to enjoy my book. It's really just more about life, and about sometimes, and we've all heard the cliches. You climb that ladder and realize it's leaning against the wrong building and things like that, which really wasn't my case, but. It's like, it's like in corporate America where you're the top, you're on the 25th floor in New York, and you don't know your daughter's favorite color. There's certain elements of that. For me, it's just about who I was, and who I was before God, who I was after, with God, and my journey. And it's by no means, I'm hoping it's no means, hopefully I have a long way to go on it, but, yeah, it's a purpose worth fighting for. It's an audio. You can get it on Amazon. I've had a lot of, the best part about it. So, and this, Brian, there's no money in books. I didn't unless you're a bestseller, and even in that, New York Times bestseller, it's not New York Times best book. It's New York Times bestseller. So a lot of them are just marketing, and that's awesome. I actually did that brand builders in Nashville, and did all, spent lots of money in terms of building, I was going to get into the public speaking side of it, but then I decided against that after the book, only because it would have taken put me back on the road like I was a hockey player again. I didn't want to travel, but anyways, I wanted to give back, and it's something like I give most of them away. I always bring them with me, and we sell them too, but I give a lot of them away on airplanes, or like at my friend John Blue, a friend of mine's a pastor, and he's got a wall called Salty Wall in his church, and I put them there, and people just grab them if they need them. And it's the stories and the emails I get from people are amazing, and that's what it's about for me. It really, it's giving back the best. One of the ways I know how to.
Well, I love the book, and I really like the questions at the end too, and I want you to know I answered all of them.
Did you?
Yeah, I just love the book. It's a really good book. So it's tell them the name of the book and tell them how they can find it again.
Yeah, Purpose Worth Fighting For, and you can just go on Amazon, and the Audible's there as well.
Okay. Well, this is another part of the show that we always do. This is going to be fun. Billy, this is called Want to Hear a Great Line. Even though I'm a songwriter, every now and then I'll hear a song and one line will just jump out and stop me. And I think to myself, what a great line. I'm Brian Kennedy. Welcome to Want to Hear a Great Line? All right, Billy, this is the part of the show that for the first 4 episodes I've done by myself. So this is the part called Want to Hear a Great Line. So I thought it would be really cool as a songwriter to point out lines and songs that when I heard them, my first thought was, this is really selfish. I wish I would have written that because I just love it so much. Or it hit me in a certain place in my life where I thought, man, that's a great line in a song, and I want to share it with people. So I thought, you're the first guest of the Brian Kennedy Show. It would be cool to see if Billy Huard has something that you think that you might want to share in a song. Think of song that you like, that one line in that song when you heard it, or a couple of lines that you went, I love that.
I'd say one of them, I have a couple songs in mind, but Tom Petty, I Won't Back Down. I'd say that was, you can lean me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down. And that was kind of like the whole first part of my life, my journey, and it is to this day, except it's changed a little bit,
So when you heard that the first time, did it hit you like that, or was it later on that you heard it that hit you like that?
Oh no, when I heard first, that was my song, like I Won't Back Down. And that was it. Like, it was like, I won't back down. I won't back down trying to make it to the, along my journey. I won't back down when the guy drops his gloves in front of me. In hockey, we call it turtling. I wasn't going to turtle. You don't want to do that.
In Louisiana, we call that crawfishing.
That's so funny. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, you don't want to go. I wish I would have known that. Crawfishing. Oh, that's so funny. And then, that was really it for me. Was
so does that still stay true for you when you hear it?
It's different now. It's different now. I think, I think there was that had a different meaning than it is now. It's as you get older, like I said, you soften up. It's like I looked up, and we talked about this. And it's like I just watched the Alan Jackson when he kind of did his last concert the other day. And the older I get, when he sang that song, man, it hit me hard. And it's kind of a reflection of, the older I get, the more I think you only got a minute. And the different lines in that song were pretty special because when you look back on the I Won't Back Down to now, it's like, you're kind of like you're pressed up and you're ready, and now it's just like there is no I won't back down. There's no challenge. I'm not faced with the challenges I was before because I'm a different person than I was then, if that makes sense.
But what a great line to hear at that point in your life. That's what I love about. Obviously I grew up in music, so I love songs and I love songwriters, and but yeah, I have to admit I've loved that line myself in certain, when you hear it kind of, that's one that's a motivation.
Yeah.
Kind of get you going. Yeah.
And he talked about like he's getting into the best years now, and his story, when I watched it, it was his grandkids, and he looked at his grandkids in the audience, and I'm like, that was me at the wedding. It's just like, man, I'm just now really getting into the best years and allowing, I guess, to your side, just I'm being more human than I ever was before. and it's just, you soften up and you learn and your lessons, and hey, there's still lots of the other stuff there in the new startup company. I'm 59. When all my friends are retired, I'm back at it again with a new startup company, and I love it.
Attaboy.
And the stress and anxiety and all these other things that are there, but it's just a different walk now. I absolutely love the walk I'm in now, and I just give thanks and praise, and I'm just so thankful.
Okay, so someone listening today feels like they're known for only one thing, like they're known, like whatever you get stuck with, if it's something you do in personal, like like they label you in school or they label you in a sport, like what would you tell somebody today that feels like this is the role, like me, you're not a back anymore, you're a lineman, and that person hates it, because I hated it, but I took that and turned it into, maybe in a sense what you did, but I took it like, if you're going to make me a lineman, then I'm going to kill everybody.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun. I didn't like it, but if it made me, I guess, angry. So if you were to meet me as a 7th grader, what do you think you'd tell me?
I would probably say to that person, be true to who you really want to be. Don't change who you are as a person to be somebody that somebody else wants you to be. I think there's elements of that, and that has nothing to do with hard work or things like that. But if you're challenged and you're in a situation where you're that, and I'm not talking about uncomfortable, I'm talking about something like I had, or maybe what you dealt with, then I would definitely, rethink it. Honestly, I would say, hey, is this something that truly is a purpose? What meaning does this have, or is this really worth it for me? Do I really want to pay the price? And that's something you got to ask yourself, especially in sports, because or even if you're going to be an attorney or whatever, is it real? Do I want to pay the price? Do I really want to go to this, be somebody I'm not, in order to do what I've always wanted to do? And think hard about that. That's what I would say. And the second thing I would say is talk to somebody like I did, or like you could now with a mentor, and talk to somebody as it relates to that. And the other, don't do it alone. Don't make any decision like that alone. I would never, like, had I had friends around me, or that even, and don't be for guys, you just want to do it all yourself. But there's so many athletes out there that have already been through what we've done. There's so many college football players that were in your shoes. There's so many hockey players that were in my shoes. There's so many folks out there that could lend a hand. But definitely don't do something that's not in your heart. That's what I would say.
So that's a tough one. I agree. And then I've always believed doing the hardest thing, whether we like it or not, really teaches us a lot. You know what I mean? Like,
it depends on what the hardest thing is, though. If the hardest thing is training harder, if the hardest thing is being a defensive forward rather than a goal scorer, or is the hardest thing getting your face punched in when you really don't want to be that guy? So I agree with you. I mean, I'm that way. I'm with you as, hey, you got to nothing good comes without paying a price. I know that, but make sure the price that you're worth paying is the lemon's worth the squeeze.
Yeah, amen.
That's what I would say. I agree with you too. They're nothing. We call it in hockey, you got to chew some glass, and you really do. And you have to ride the buses, and you have to do that, and this and that, and as long as you can put yourself in a place that accepts it, and you're not going to go off the rails, then it's awesome, and go for it. But if you're in a situation where you're going to do unhealthy things to deal with the pressure and things that are on you, then I would probably say that's not the direction you need to go.
So how did all of this, to finish this up, all of the things that we just talked about and what we just said right there, is it faith that literally saved you?
It is, and
Yeah.
and that's what I would say in what we just talked about. I would say faith, trust and
Yeah.
faith, and if you have faith on your side, there is no mountain you can't climb. It gets you through everything. It's
Because we're never alone.
well, and our
Right.
paths already, we're never alone. You're right. You're not in that hotel room after fighting in front of 18,000 people with a 12 pack trying to figure out what your life, and it's quiet. You got a black eye, you got an ice bag on your face, and you're sitting there. And now the dust is settling. You're just kind of sitting there wondering, what the hell am I doing here? And that's the part. But with faith, all things are possible. And the other thing is, with faith, you're going to get guided. You're going to have direction on that choice. It's not just, oh, he's going to make that choice. Your directions, our book's already been written, man. And that's how I look at it. And if you stay on the path and you have faith, then that path is going to lead you exactly where you go. And it will go through the valleys. And you will choose some glass. And you will end up with black eyes. And you will end up with, in schools you don't get accepted to. And you will end up writing songs that you love and nobody else like that's the nature of the beast, right?
Amen. Yes.
It's the nature of the beast. In Nashville, singing for 10 years and not get a break, but with faith, a door will open and you'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
So perfect. That's perfect, because that is so true. That's the best thing. Lean into God, and He will lean into you. Bumper sticker a friend of mine told me about years ago, and we can leave it with this, but it said, lately I don't feel close to God. And then it said, who moved?
Yeah, God didn't move.
It's not even Him.
No, He's always been there. And I will share this, and this to me is the biggest thing with God in my relationship, and I share with everybody, and I want to share with your folks, is God never wastes a hurt. So whatever pain you're going through, if you're going through financial tough time, marriage issues, cancer, God never wastes a hurt. He's with you. He's there with you each and every day. And He wants you to share your story, just like we're sharing and I'm sharing. He wants you to share your story, because there's somebody out there that needs to hear it. And also, if you look to the left or to the right, there's a worse story. Somebody's been through a lot worse than I ever have, or than you ever have, or the next person has. So just know that God never wastes a hurt. So don't ever be shy in sharing your story of what you went through, because for me, nobody wants to hear about. They can go to YouTube and watch all my fights. They know I played in the NHL, and they can hear a million NHL stories. But when I tell them about what I went through and who I am, man, it gets real quiet. And then they start talking. Every time I give somebody a book, Brian, they don't share my book. They don't share my story. They share their story. And that's why I wrote it.
Wow. That's the Billy Huard that I know right there. Thank you, Billy.
Seriously. I love you, brother.
I love you too, and you know that. Love your family, and I'm so proud of you and happy for you, and I know where you get your joy, which gives me great peace. I can't see you enough. I hope to see you again soon, but thanks for sharing with all these folks. We're probably going to do another one, because there's so much more I want to talk about. Is that cool sometime?
Absolutely. We'll do it out at your ranch.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, let's do the next one out at your place.
That'd be awesome. Thanks, Billy.